The essential question for Chapter 2 is what happens when you add, subtract, multiply, and divide integers. In Lesson 2.1, you'll be looking at integers and absolute value. You will learn how to compare and order integers and find the absolute value of an expression. Even though we're not spending a lot of time out of the book doing homework, it's still important for you to read through the notes as you copy down the definitions of your vocabulary words and read through the examples. In example 1, we're just writing integers for each situation, and for the Got It section that you will complete on your note sheet, 1A says a loss of 8 yards. And when we're talking about a loss, that will be a negative number, so 1A would be a negative 8. In 1B, we're talking about a deposit, and deposit is putting money into the bank, and so that would be a positive $15. Please make sure you have those answers on your note sheet for example 1. For example 2, we're talking about graphing an integer on a number line. And so a number line just shows you where integers fall, to the left or to the right of 0. And we're also talking about writing inequalities using the number line. So in the case of the example here, example A says write 2 inequalities using 1 and negative 2. Well, on the number line, here's 1 and here's negative 2. So one way you could do that is say 1 is greater than negative 2, or you could say negative 2 is less than 1. Jumping down to 2A and 2B that you will record on your note sheet, it says write 2 inequalities involving negative 7 and negative 3. Here's negative 7 on the number line, and here's negative 3 on the number line. Negative 7 is less than negative 3 is one inequality, and you could also say that negative 3 is greater than negative 7. Now sometimes that's confusing because you're looking at the number 7 and you're thinking, how can 7 be less than 3? But we're talking about to the left of 0 on the number line, and the further left you go, the lesser numbers you arrive at. So just remember that you can use a number line to visualize which number is smaller. In 2B it says replace the circle with the less than, greater than, or equal sign, negative 1 and 2. Here's negative 1 on the number line, here's 2 on the number line, negative 1 is less than 2 on the number line. Again, that's just one strategy. If you don't like it, that's fine, but just realize that you can use a number line to map those numbers out. For example 3, we have a story problem here, and it wants us to order their scores from least to greatest. You can read through that. And for the Got It on example 3, it gives us some temperatures at Niagara Falls, and here they are. We're going to arrange those from least to greatest. And I see that the smallest number is negative 6, so you will write this down on your note sheet for the answer to example 3. The next smallest number is negative 5, and then we jump up to negative 1, and then we get to 0, and then we get to 1, 2, 3, and 4. Again, if you need to write a number line out to visualize that, that's fine. Otherwise, you can list the scores just like I did in order from least to greatest. For example 4 on page 48, we're taking a look at absolute value. And the absolute value of a number is simply the distance of that number to 0. So negative 6 and 6 have the same absolute value because they're both 6 spaces away from 0. In example 4, there's a few examples to look at. For the Got It section that you will record on your note sheet, the absolute value of negative 3 means how far is negative 3 from 0? And the answer is 3. In 4B, we have a couple of absolute values, and then we have an operation to take care of. So let's first of all take care of the absolute value of 4, the negative 4. Negative 4 is 4 places away from 0, so we'll record that. Minus, we'll bring that straight down into our expression here. And then the absolute value of 3 is 3. 3 is 3 places away from 0. Next, we will simplify. 4 minus 3 equals 1. Finally, in example 5, we have some algebraic expressions with absolute value, so we will simply substitute in values for our variables. In this case, on 5a, negative 7 is y, so we'll plug that in. The absolute value of negative 7 is a positive 7. And if we take 7 plus 8, we get 15. For 5b, we're going to substitute 3 in for z, and the absolute value of 3 is 15. Absolute value of 3 is 3, and 3 times 5 is 15. And so what we have here is 9 minus 15, and 9 minus 15 will give us a negative 6. For lesson 2.1, we're also going to look at page 50, the HOT problem 63 and 65. In 63, it asks us to determine whether each statement is always, sometimes, or never true. In this case, the absolute value of x equals the absolute value of negative x. No matter what we put in those absolute value bars, the answer is always going to be positive. So let's just try this with a couple of numbers. Let's say x is 3. So if I put x equals 3 here and x equals 3 here, no matter what side of the equation you're looking at, the absolute value of 3 is 3, and the absolute value of negative 3 is a positive 3. And so for 63, that's always true. On number 65, let's use that same example of 3, and we'll put the 3 here. In this case, the absolute value of negative 3 is 3, and the absolute value of 3 is 3, but the negative sign is outside, and so in this case 3 does not equal negative 3, so I know that it's not going to always be true. And now we have to decide if it's sometimes true or never true. I can think of one number to test, and that is the number 0. We have negative x, in this case I'll put x is equal to 0, and then in the other side I'll put a negative sign and I'll put a 0 in for x there. And so what I have here is 0 equals 0. So that is true, and so I would say that that's sometimes true. I don't know if there's any other numbers that would work for that. We can try. You can try to figure out another word, another number that works there, but for number 65, I'll say that sometimes that is true. Hopefully these example problems get you enough practice to go through lesson 2.1 homework and self-check quiz. Let me know if you have any questions.